We're live.
All righty. Sweet. We're back on.
Yay.
So I'll go ahead and get started. Bubba, I'll introduce us, and then Bubba will introduce Terria. Hi, I'm Virgil Moorhead. We're on the Virtual Indigenous Speaker Series. Sorry for the delay. We had a little bit of technical difficulties with Facebook. Well, we will blame it on Facebook and Chris Shaw. But anyhow, it's 12:22. It's looks like there's going to be some sun up here in Humboldt County. And we're glad to have our guest on today. A little bit about the speaker series is that it's just really an opportunity to talk about Indigenous issues, Native issues, and really offer our community a place to support, raise their consciousness, and really think about what are the pertinent issues in Indian country today. So I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Bubba Riggins to introduce our guest.
Good afternoon, everybody. As Virgil said, my name is Bubba Riggins. I am a youth support coordinator with Two Feathers Native Family Services. Before we get started with the meeting today, I wanted to take a second and recognize that today is a day that we raise awareness for missing and murdered Indigenous women and men also. I just wanted to, few of us got our red on. We're doing that in support for the cause and to make sure that people are aware, that Native women and Native people get victimized far more often than people of other races and nationalities in America and in Canada. And I think Indigenous people all over the world experience these kinds of issues. We are often targeted. And so something I posted today on Facebook, I was looking through some of the statistics, and not to be too grim, but a Native woman there's 1 in 3, and some statistics say 1 in 4 Native women are likely to experience sexual violence or sexual harassment in their lifetime. I don't want to dive too far down into the dark end of things, but I just wanted to make sure that we raise our awareness and raise our consciousness on the issue, and make sure that we do that. We do whatever we can to support our community, our sisters and our brothers, our aunts and our uncles, and to spread love. That's what we're all about. That's what our community is about, is making ourselves better, and for ourselves and better for the community. On that note, I'd like to introduce Terria Smith. She is the editor of, and correct me if I'm wrong on your title, of News from Native California, which is a magazine that has been going on and presenting all of the local happenings of Native California. Welcome. Thank you for coming and joining us, Terria.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. And I appreciate your acknowledgement of the missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls and people. Just my youngest daughter, her grandfather's been missing since 1995. Nobody knows what happened to him, and it's a terrible thing. She never got to meet her grandfather, and it's terrible. It's terrible to think about. Most people that I know somebody who went missing. I come from Torres Martinez Reservation in Southern California. I'm the editor for News from Native California magazine. We've been around for about 30 years. Our magazine is unique and special because we only focus on California tribes. Which is something that no other publication does. And so we're really, really happy about the work and proud of the work that we do to serve our California communities.
Nice. And I saw, thank you for coming on. One of the things that, I had a question is I saw that you had done some, your undergrad you completed your undergrad in Humboldt State, and then you got your master's at UC Berkeley in journalism. And so I think, coming up here and seeing the rural nature of Humboldt County, and then being in Berkeley, and then where you're from, it seems like you have a a pretty good, I would guess, understanding of some of the issues as well as the strengths of our Native communities in California. And so I just wanted you to speak to that a little bit about what you think is unique about the Native people of California, and how maybe, you know, news from Native California bring out some of those stories.
Okay. Yeah. I went to Humboldt State. I chose Humboldt State because I went there to visit on a spring preview, and I met Marlon Sherman and some of the other Native staff that were there. And it was unlike any other school that I had visited, because there was such a strong support for Native students. There's no other school, and I always tell young people from my reservation and from other tribes to consider going to Humboldt State University, because you're going to be supported. People, they care about you, and there's, and it's you, even though you're really, really far away from home, you don't feel like you're far away from home, because there's a community outside of campus for you. I knew a lot of other students of color when I went to Humboldt State, and they felt really alienated at times. And I can say I never felt that way, because when you leave campus, there's tribal communities around you and people that care about you and want you to do well. I find that, or I found that my education at Humboldt State University was really inspiring, because in this is something that I say a lot, but in Southern California, the cultural resources for us in our tribal communities, they seem to be in the hands of like the anthros, where the cultural resources in Northern California are in the hands of the people. And so it's a really inspiring experience. And you really, you know, when you're going to school there, you think about, or I thought about ways that I could, you know, come home and help my communities, or things that I could bring back home. And it's just it was a wonderful place to get an education. The challenge that I find with the work that I do with California tribal communities, it's not so much of a problem up north, because the cultures and tribal nations are so visible, but we have a lot of problems in a lot of parts of the state with visibility. A lot of times, like in communities like in Los Angeles and other spots like that, some in the Bay Area, somewhat, it's a lot better now, but there's a lot of this kind of eclipsing with like powwow cultures and everything like that. Like people would associate Native people with powwow cultures, and to have to explain, and this is something I go through every single day, having to tell people how different, how versatile, and how distinct tribal cultures are in California. And it's a challenge, but it's something that drives, you know, the work of the magazine all the time. We get calls in from people that don't understand, and this Native people and non-Native people too. They'll call in and they'll write or send me an email saying something like, okay, well, we have this person who's from, I don't know, Navajo or Lakota or another tribe, and they were born and raised in Los Angeles. They say, okay, well, that's not the work that we do. Our work is specific to California Indians. Well, they're Indian and they're born in California. No, that's different than being a California Indian. And that's something that I find too that's unique to California, because it's not something that I see in other states. Like people in Arizona don't have those same kind of issues. You know, there's no way I would go to Arizona or Alaska or anywhere but my homeland, really, and try to essentially pull rank on people because I'm a Native person. But it's like, okay, but I'm not from there. And this comes up a lot. And so I really appreciate the work that I'm able to do, especially because I work with a lot of college students, and they have that strong sense of, you know, identity, you know, and desire to share with everyone who they are and where they come from and everything like that. So it makes for a really vibrant magazine, and it helps people to become a little bit more educated. The flip side to that is we have a very, very small concentrated audience, but you know, I think that that's a good thing, because it's something that's just for us.
How do you see, now that we're in such a technological age, how do you see the audience of news from Native California changing? Do you see a lot more people wanting online editions, or do you still see a high number of paper magazine subscriptions?
I'm struggling with that right now because a lot of our subscriber base and a lot of our readership, they're older people, or they're people that live in really, really remote communities where they don't have internet access. And so, like, one of our main features for the magazine, one of the most popular features is the calendar. And so now we have to figure out another way to do that because there's not a lot of in-person events going on right now. But then I feel I have my heart, it's unsettling to me because there's so many people that read our magazine that are going to be completely left out of that piece. I'm hoping that at some point we can kind of bridge the gap between people that have internet access and people who don't. For a while, the magazine was kind of playing that part, but now that that divide has become so huge, I have to rethink everything. Like with the upcoming issue of the magazine, here's one example. There's a lot of content coming in for the next issue of the magazine. I was worried about it, thinking, oh gosh, am I going to be able to fill this? And so there's lots of people doing creative stuff, like submitting poetry and essays. People have been writing a lot more, but there's like hardly any pictures. And I'm like, oh man, how am I going to put a magazine together with no pictures? So this is something that's especially challenging. We do have an online presence and we do have a digital issue of the magazine, but there's something about, especially for our contributing writers, there's something about holding the magazine or ordering a bunch of copies for your family so they can all have it, and framing the cover if you're on the cover and everything like that you don't necessarily get digitally. But we've got to figure out a way to make it more engaging for our online audience as well, because now everything's turned to that direction. But I feel so bad and I feel so guilty for building up that content so much when there's a lot of folks that I know that aren't going to be able to see it.
Thank you. So I wanted to turn it over. So we have a group of HSU students on, not myself, I went to UC Davis, but the other panelists here, Amada and Chris, are also ITEP HSU students, graduate students now. So I wanted to turn over to Amada to ask a question to Terria.
Hi, Terria.
Hi.
Hope it's going good today. My name's Amada, like Virgil's introduction, but I kind of was looking over the online site because everything's digital, so I couldn't get a copy or look into ordering fast enough. But I wanted to kind of look into that. But I was curious, just because of what you're previously talking about, has it opened up more opportunities in the sense for internships? Because all of the stuff that's being published and done is online and virtual. So is it, in that sense, opened up some opportunities for people?
That's the cool part of what we do at the magazine, and something that we've been trying for a while. That's actually one thing that we were ahead of as far as anything else went, is we've had for the past like maybe 3 or 4 years, we've had like a low residency internship program, because the whole advantage of the magazine itself is that you want voices from different California tribal communities. So we don't want people to leave their tribal communities. We would like them to stay where they are, and so that they can report and write from where it is they come from. So we do have an internship program. Most of our interns come to us in the summer just because of how school is. And you don't have to leave home. You submit your articles, through email and everything, any photos that you have and everything like that. It's all completely online. And so that's one thing that we were able to get ahead of and everything. And we really, really, really love having interns, and we encourage people to apply for the internship program. It's not hard. It's a wonderful experience for us of course, and then we hope that it's as good of an experience for our California Indian interns as well.
Okay, and just like a kind of follow-up question in this for the younger audience and from below college, because I've noticed it since United Indian Health Services here, they've done some video, they've taken some local Native youth down south for some video kind of editing, filmmaking stuff. And so how would youth here kind of get a step in the door if they were leading to this direction? And
for video production, or for
well, no, for because I media in the sense, because I noticed you guys
Oh.
publish a lot of pictures and all of that. So how would they get a foot in the door at a young age? Maybe stuff that they can do, programs, software stuff, anything like that.
I think that, well, I wish we had more. We have had some high school students in the past, and even some middle school students in the past that submit to the magazine. So that's always welcome as well. But I used to have when I was going through college and everything, and before that, I was really self-conscious about taking pictures and video. I didn't think I was that good at it. But the more that you have, the more practice you have, the better at it that you get. And then the more practice that you have, the more options for content that you have, if that makes sense. So it's like, I had a friend who was a photographer who used to say, and I thought, gosh, you take amazing photos. Like, I wish I could take as many photos as you. He says, no, what I do is I take a lot of photos. And out of all of the, like, I take like 100 photos and maybe 10 will be really, 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 really good. So that was one tip that he gave me. Before I was at Heyday, I actually used to produce video for First Nations Experience Television Network, and that was good work. It was a lot of work, and it was hard work and everything like that. But what I would say is for a younger person, like in high school, middle school age even, is to just practice and have fun right now with the camera and with multimedia and everything like that. It's so easy now to get creative that way. You can do so many cool things on your phone now. You can produce so much content, and everything like that. And the wonderful thing about it is, you already have an audience as a tribal person, as a member of a tribal community. Your tribal community, if no one else watches it in the beginning, your tribal community will watch it, and they'll definitely, they're great with being able to give, constructive and even sometimes harsh feedback on those kind of things.
Thank you for that. I think that'll help a lot. We have, besides this panelist, this series, we also have a youth engagement series. We'll talk a little bit about that later on, but that's where I touch bases because I like to work with youth in the sense, and I'm also a youth mentor with Two Feathers, so I like getting those insights as well.
That's so
thank
cool.
So thank you, Amada. I'm going to turn it over, last but not least, Mr. Chris Shaw, who helps with that youth engagement speaker series too. And I know that he eagerly has a question for you too, Terria.
Thank you.
Hi, Terria. How are you today?
Hi. Pretty good.
So I was going to talk about the youth engagement series. Like, that's something that me and Amada and Charlie, other co-hosts, are really, really big into. But the thing that we were like, and we could also get you a bunch of pictures for that too with the kids that we're working with. So
cool.
We'll get some out for that. The kind of question that I have for you is based on, because you said earlier, like, especially in Southern California, it's very, what is the content is very like based on the anthropologist or like other people. So my question is, how can you get like the right media out there so like people can actually get the content, get the right content that they're trying to, that they want to see?
That's a good question. Sometimes I think that we forget about things that aren't produced outside of our own tribal communities. Like, if you are plugged into your own tribal community, there's all kinds of wonderful things that are happening, and as far as content goes online, there's wonderful, like down here in Southern California, a bunch of our bird singers, they put together like a virtual gathering, and so they had like different bird song and dance groups that were singing and that were singing and dancing that you could watch online. There's all of these wonderful things if you're tapped in. I feel really bad for for tribal community members, young people who are a little bit further, that aren't as connected as a lot of us are with our tribal communities. Because if you Google just Native American, or even just any tribe, there's all kinds of garbage out there that will come up immediately, like, and you have to dig and search and really, really find the stuff that we're out there producing. But what comes up first are stereotypical images or things that aren't produced by Native people, and all of these other kind of stuff. That's what you get to first. So what we try to do a lot of times, the other part of the work that we do with the magazine is our social media looks a whole lot different than our actual magazine does. And so like our Facebook site, for example, works like as a news aggregator site to kind of get people the information about our tribal communities that's happening like immediately, like right now, to kind of get those searches up, to get those, so that, that those stories will be a little bit more prominent. Because that's important. That's an important part of the work that we do too. Even if we're not producing it, if it's not our contributing writers, if it's not, coming from our magazine, if it's coming from Native California, we want to share it, and we want to, and it's important to us. So it's rough out there, but for young people, for sure, if it's a possibility, especially the ones that maybe don't live within their tribal communities, or maybe a little bit more removed, to work with them on how to find legitimate content, it's worthwhile. It's really sad to think that there's kids out there that don't know enough to be able to go to the right places, but I think it's important for us to be able to guide them a little bit further. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, that was a great answer. And then
good.
we can also put, if you want more content to put, we have stuff to put on your Facebook and your magazine as well. So.
Oh, good. Good. That's great.
So I had a question. So on our speaker series, we've had, like Tommy Orange, who's Cheyenne, and Therese Maya, really prolific writers. And we've been, at Two Feathers, we are a family service agency, right? We primarily work with youth and around wellness, mental health, substance abuse, but really trying to promote the positive development of our Native local youth. And so my question is around like the writing and the arts, and you with the journalism master's degree, and just what are your thoughts about ways that you see, Native news from California, or, Heyday Books helping to sort of heal or helping to promote wellness in the lives of California Indians?
That's a good question, and I'm glad that you asked that, because there's a lot of ways that we do it, and some of those ways are really subtle. Like, for example, we don't publish stories about intertribal conflicts. So like, if tribe, there's plenty of that stuff out there. There's plenty of news out there that focuses on the negativity that our tribes are going through. It's not as though we don't publish, challenges, but we like to focus and promote stories about how people are, what people are doing to make things better. So we say, okay, here's a problem, here's what's going on to make things better. I have a friend and a colleague. She's a wonderful individual. I went to Humboldt State with. Her name's Allie Hostler from Hoopa. And she did a documentary about I think it was about meth on Hoopa, and she did it in such a great way, and it was like not exploitive, and it didn't show one person that was having problems or everything, but it showed how the community was responding to that condition, to that problem. And I really, really appreciated that. And so that's the kind of work I try to do, because other folks are they're gonna report about that stuff all the time without us. But our magazine is focused more on it's more on arts and culture. So and activism, there's a lot of activism too, but just so that it's it's you know, it's not, there's no despair. There's a lot of hope. There's a lot of action. There's a lot of forward moving things to inspire people, you know, something beautiful to look at, you know. That's where we try to keep the focus on the magazine, not necessarily about, you know, oh, we're just so sad and we're just so tragic and, you know, that sort of thing. So that's where I think that we work in terms of healing and helping the community.
Yeah. Thank you. And sort of just a follow up, and you kind of spoke to it a little bit, but I'm curious, like in your work and in your experience.
Uh-oh. Oh no. He froze. Did he freeze? Oh no.
Can you hear me now?
But they had technical
Okay, I can hear
difficulties.
you. Great,
Okay.
great.
Technical
Okay.
difficulties.
You're back. Great. Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
So my question is, like, how do you go about telling and creating a compelling story in your world of work? You know, I think you kind of just spoke to it, but just a little bit sort of unpacking that power of story, because I feel like that's been a theme throughout our speaker series of the power of story.
That's challenging because depending on where you come from, stories look a little bit different. In contemporary life, I guess in the way that we're kind of conditioned to write, it's like, okay, a story has a beginning, middle, and an end. But like when I was a kid, you know, when somebody would tell you a story, it was like, I mean, it would be years later till you figured out what it was that was all about. You know, I mean, you had to go through some life experiences and have some things happen before, you know, things could be revealed to you, you know, culturally. So it's hard. Well, actually, we're at an advantage because our readership, you know, a lot of folks that read the magazine understand that, and so there's a lot of different ways that you can tell a story. But I think that the most compelling stories that we've had are those that have a really human interest, that talk about somebody being triumphant or someone going through something that was difficult and how their culture helped them through that, or how their community helped them through that, or you know, or those sorts of things like that, so that you can see the power in your community. Because it's easy. I mean, I was a kid on the reservation. It's easy to kind of get caught up in the despair of things. But if you have somebody that's been through what you're going through and then came off the other end and they've been triumphant in a lot of different ways, it really helps. So not necessarily the structure of a beginning, middle, and an end like we're told, but just basically to talk about stories that address matters of the heart and of community.
And I guess one little last follow up on that is, like, in these times, you know, is there any specific stories that you all are highlighting in the upcoming magazine, or have highlighted in the most recent magazine that maybe you can talk to a little bit as an example of what you just described?
Yeah, there's some in the upcoming issue of the magazine. It's really hard. I'll say this first. It's really hard to kind of stay up on everything that's going on with the pandemic and everything, because we're a quarterly magazine and stuff changes day to day. You know, like, and so it's like, okay, gosh, you know, this information that we had, you know, a week ago isn't going to work for the magazine next month. You know, that sort of thing. But what I'm really inspired by is how people like yourselves are working with tribal youth and some of the challenges that they're having and who they're going to kind of seek, you know, guidance and help with and everything like that, but that people aren't giving up. That's what I really appreciate, that it's a really, I mean, gosh, and the work that we do for the magazine, we're a nonprofit we're under a nonprofit publisher, so we have to just work to, to keep our heads above water. But and sometimes that kind of stunts your creativity and everything like that. But it's wonderful to be able to read stories about people that, in spite of the circumstances that they're in, are able to push through, and they're able to still be creative, and they're still able to figure out ways to continue to serve their tribal communities. That's a wonderful thing, and I'm hoping that we can highlight a lot of that good work in the next issue of the magazine.
Nice, thank you. I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Bubba Riggins to ask another one of his questions. So we were all sharing in on this lovely conversation.
Great.
Oh man, now I just had a brain fart.
It'll come back. It'll come
Chris,
back.
do you got a question right now?
Yeah, I'll save you, Bubba. Don't worry. So I like how you talked about like what people are doing during this time, because the biggest thing I've learned about natives in general is just how they're resilient. So my kind of question is how you can highlight what you've been doing to highlight our resiliency and highlight like, yeah, that things may like be happening and challenges may be happening, but there's still this resiliency. We can still get through that.
You know what's really been amazing about all of that lately and everything like that is like all of our tribal enterprises have had to close down, all of our gaming facilities, well, except for if you have a gas station. If you have a gas station, you're good to go. But, a lot of tribal communities have had to shut their facilities down. And every single day we get stories about how generous these tribes that have lost their entire enterprises have been to their surrounding communities, that they're continuing to feed people, that they're continuing to support programs, and they're continuing to give to hospitals. And it's just incredible, where most other corporations that are having a hard time have kind of tightened up and laid people off and, and all these other kind of things like that. And they just don't have the room to give, where our tribal people continue to have the willingness to give. And I remember a time when our tribal communities, especially some of the ones that are a little bit more well off, when they didn't have anything and nobody was there to help them, like the surrounding communities weren't there to help them, but still, after thousands of years, are still, we still have that value of being able to take care of each other. And that's something that's absolutely wonderful to me. It's not just resiliency, because resiliency is, you get back up and you keep going in spite of everything. But then on top of that, there's no bitterness. You're just able to keep giving. And that's something, every single day we get those stories about tribal communities helping people out. I wish that was something that the general public had more exposure to. Because it's a wonderful thing.
This isn't the question I was going to ask, but this is a question I just thought of on the spot. Save myself a little bit too. How would somebody go about submitting? You mentioned a lot of people, are submitting poems and just short articles and stuff. How would somebody go about that process if they had something that they thought was worthy of being put into an issue?
Okay, well, I'm glad you asked that. All you would do is just write to me. You can either, if you have a completed piece, or if you even have an idea, you can email me at terria@heyday.com. So that's TERRIA at hey, that's HEYDAY books.com. So if you were able to, you can, if it doesn't even have to be, a well-developed idea, I can help you through that. The other thing is that I really want to emphasize to folks and everything, because there's a lot of new photographers, and I'm so happy about the enthusiasm, but because the web is a whole lot different than a magazine, the way that we're printed, like the pictures have to be a certain size, they have to be a certain resolution, and sometimes people and it's okay, you can take pictures on your phone, that's totally fine, but just make sure that the settings are at the highest possible resolution that they can be so that we can print them in the magazine. Because sometimes people wonder like, well, I sent in a picture, but how come it's like this big in the magazine? It's like, well, because it's not a large enough file. And something I'm hoping one day, you know, when everything's back to normal, we can do some sort of photography workshop to be able to help people out with those sorts of things. Yeah, but just, you know, send me an email with your ideas or your full pieces, and we'll go from there. As long as they're focused on California Indian people, we'll consider them.
Nice. It's kind of a different question, but maybe a little bit similar. You know, one of the things that we were talking about before we got on with you was around like critical media skills and being able to, you know, especially in these times, being able to, you know, discern or know when it's fake news,
Yeah.
when it's, you know, propaganda
Mhm.
that is meant to sort of, you know, kind of colonize your mind. And so I'm wondering for those youth and those younger people that may be tuning in or watching this video, what are your sort of recommendations or ways to go about, you know, really having a critical eye when it comes to media?
That's a lot more challenging than people realize, I think, because a lot of that misinformation comes under the guise of a legitimate news organization. The other day, I was watching network news on YouTube and everything, and they were reinforcing this idea about Native people going to college for free type deal. And I thought, this is why people believe that stuff, because this is a trusted, you know, network and everything like that. So a lot of that is really, really hard to navigate. Some of it you can see right off. The website doesn't look good. Stuff is, you know, like there's terrible grammatical errors. There's, you know, it's the website's not backed by a legitimate organization. Some of that stuff is like glaring, you know, and then some of the other information that's out there. And I'm not necessarily saying that people are being malicious or anything like that. A lot of the people that are disseminating this news, they just don't know. This is just the information that they have, and they're just passing it along, you know. And that's something that that's directly related to people not speaking to Indian people themselves. Like that is something that comes across quite often. We still get submissions into the magazine from people who have clearly not talked to any Native people at all for their pieces, but they've continued to write it. And then when I suggest, okay, you need to be working with a Native person, a lot of these folks will say, well, no, I'm not, you know, that's not what I want to do. I'm like, okay, well then, you know, you can't publish with us. Basically, like if you're not going to include actual Native people, if there's no human element to this, this is not something that we're going to accept, not for this publication. And even to be nicer before I get to that point, because that's usually like that's usually the bottom line. But I'll tell people, I said, you know, pick up a copy of the magazine and see what's written in there. And that there's what it is. But yeah, a lot of that comes from not directly sourcing any living, breathing Native people in you know, they're just not sourcing that way. They're just, you know, looking at an old book from like, you know, 60, 70 years ago or something.
Makes sense. Thanks for that. Yeah, because I mean, what about like on social media and I guess just what is your you know, since you're more in the field of, you know, on or not so much online but journalism and media, and what have you seen in your sort of read of California Indians, the impact that social media, both maybe positive and negative, have had on our people?
Oh, there's really, really cool language videos that a lot of people are doing, and a lot of tribal programs are putting together. They're really, really neat. Those are definitely the good things that are out there. So even somebody who's a tribal member from a California tribe that maybe lives in Oregon or Washington or anywhere, they can access their language, and they can learn their language through classes, through online dictionaries even, and those sorts of resources like that. That's been a wonderful, 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 wonderful thing. A lot of times people, I think a lot of folks that aren't familiar with California tribes are always really impressed when they see an online picture and to see how rich the culture is. I don't know why that surprises people, but people are really, really surprised to see, beautiful regalia, to see beautiful jewelry, to see beautiful art, and have, I mean, it's almost like, they've been enlightened to something that, it's like their whole life has changed, like, oh my gosh, there's this whole other world out here that's been around me that I haven't had any exposure to. That's a wonderful thing about it. The bad thing about it is, I don't know how to say this diplomatically, but a lot of times people take tribal successes and make it seem like a lot of the good stuff that a lot of the gaming tribes have been doing. It's just absolutely wonderful services that they've been providing to their tribes and to their communities. And they take that and they think everybody is having that experience. Like everybody, all the tribes are rich and everybody's doing well and that sort of thing like that. That's I would say, it's not necessarily that it's bad, because I always like to see tribal people doing well, but it's that people take that information and I don't know, I guess apply it to all 150 tribes across the state or something like that. That is what I would see as a negative.
Yeah, that kind of goes to what you were just talking about, just that ignorance, I guess, is the best word to call it, for people regarding around, it's just so much of that we're seeing is something in the past, or what they do see is those glimpses of, like you're saying, of casinos. And, so I went to high school in Temecula, and but I'm from up here originally. I'm Hupa tribal member, Yurok. But I got associated, with the gaming tribes all the time. And, I had to put up with a bunch of shit, sorry for my language, but, I had to put up with a bunch of shit regarding that, because, oh, you just, you think you're entitled, or you get money for nothing for just sitting on the couch all day and this and that. Like I went through, and that's not, poor me or by any means, but it's just speaking to the experience and kind of reflective of what you're talking about right now.
Something that's unfair about that too, that I dislike and everything like that. It's like those tribes weren't always doing economically well, and this is what I tell people about our gaming tribes. They're not Coca-Cola. They're not Procter and Gamble. They're not making billions and billions and billions and billions of dollars. They are tribal nations that are responsible for, their group of people and everything like that. They have crazy overhead. They have to pay, staff. They have to pay for the loan, to build their tribal facilities, all of these crazy things like that. And then the other part of it to me that I find really racist is like, okay, so Indians can't be rich. We're not supposed to, our people aren't supposed to be rich. We're not, we shouldn't have anything. Like we're so, I don't understand that either. That's something, I mean, and it's frustrating for me to communicate that to people, because I'm just like, well, who said that we weren't, we're just supposed, our tribes are just supposed to be in poverty forever, especially here in Southern California, where we don't have a lot of the natural resources that people have in the north to be able to live and sustain themselves. A lot of that we don't have. So, a lot of people in the South, all you have is money, and everything, to be able to take care of yourself. And people are still, our people here are still cultural and everything like that. But I don't know. It's just, we get a lot of that, oh, well, and then the other thing that bothers me about that are people telling Indian people what they should do with their economic resources. Like, well, why aren't the rich tribes helping the poor tribes? It's like, you have no right to know how much these tribes are earning. You don't know if they're making as much as you think they're making. All of these things. And how dare you tell these tribal communities what it is that they should do with their money? I don't know. That's a whole complicated, infuriating issue for me.
Very much so. The Indian experience in America is definitely very complicated, to say the least.
Definitely.
So I just wanted to turn it to the audience. If anybody has any questions, please put it in our comment section on Facebook and I'll ask. I also wanted to just, as we're winding down in this interview, just throw it out to you, Terria, about sort of what should we be excited about with News from Native California and some of your work. And you've already talked about it, but just kind of to summarize it and anything that we should look out for. And yeah.
Okay. Well, we're really happy. We got support from the California Arts Council to redesign the magazine. So if you get the magazine, it looks a little different. It looks like this now. And before it used to look like this. So, and it was beautiful both ways, but we just, it had the same look for about 20 years. So we decided to change that. And so something else that you can look forward to is we're also with the magazine, the print magazine changing, we're also going to be redesigning the website. And we did get all Native designers for those projects. The redesign for the magazine was done by a Chumash woman who's our designer, who's our regular designer, but we were able to give her a little more assistance to just completely revamp the magazine. And then the web designers that we're contracted to work with are from the Tataviam tribe in Southern California. So we're really, really happy that we're able to get all Native people to help with the redesign process. So that's something that's really exciting. Folks can also email me too if there are ideas that you have that would help us with the website and the magazine. Please email me again, TERRIA at heydaybooks.com. Sorry.
Thank you. And I know we have Amada has a question, and then I'll look at the audience, and then we'll sort of wrap up with talking a little bit about our next steps with the speaker series, as well as our youth engagement series with Mr. Shaw. Amada?
Yeah, so I actually realized, kind of going through things, that I did have a News from Native California magazine at my house. And then I also realized my professor from Caleb, he was on there. And then you also did a thing about my uncle. And so I don't know if it was you directly, but I was like, oh, that's where I remember it from. And so I was kind of looking over it and stuff, and I thought that was kind of cool. There were two people in one book that I knew, as well as kind of full circle here. It was more of a comment than a question.
No, I'm glad that you noticed that. That's the part of my job that I love, that people get to see their relatives and family members and people that they know in the magazine and everything like that. Because, it's not very often when California Native people are in magazines and that sort of thing like that. It's, we usually have to share the space with a bunch of other people. So, I mean, that's a wonderful thing. And that particular issue of the magazine, that was the love issue.
It was. It's something my uncle would. It's true.
that whole concept developed because Native people, with people that are from our communities, they see Native people as being one-dimensional, as we don't have feelings or something, that it's that stereotypical stoic stuff. So we wanted to show people being endearing and loving toward each other and everything like that. So there's stories about people, how they met and everything like that, and all these wonderful Native love stories. Even there were stories about people's love for their land and everything like that. So it was just all about love and everything. I hope we can do something like that again, because that was a lot of fun. That was a lot of fun to put together. A lot of times Your uncle too came to us when we did the family issue too. It was his idea. He said you should do one on the power of family. And so yeah, a lot of those ideas that we get come from community people, and we'll focus an entire issue on a lot of those things. But love was that was a fun one to put together. I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah, no, I saw that. It was like bugging me because I couldn't make the connection. I was like, I know this from somewhere. And then halfway through, I had a message. I was like, oh, I know. And I grabbed it really quick.
Oh,
So.
cool. That's so cool.
Okay, get back to Virgil.
So thank you, Terria. It's been a great opportunity to catch up, and I think we showed the survivance of Native people of California in the beginning stages of this interview with our adaptation, starting a little bit behind. But I wanted to thank you again, and then also, we have coming up on Thursday at 12 o'clock a local California native, Blythe George. She's a Yurok tribal member, and she just recently received her PhD from Harvard University. And so she's going to be talking on our speaker series about some of her dissertation work and just what she's been doing. So look out for that. And then I also wanted to turn it over to Chris and have him talk a little bit about the youth engagement series and it's what's going on with it today and going forward. Mr. Shaw.
Terria, I'm definitely going to be in contact with you because we're definitely going to be working with you in the future. So I'm excited about that.
Awesome.
For the youth engagement series today, we're supposed to go at 1 o'clock, but kind of a little late for that. So we're going to go at 2:30 instead. That way me and Amada and Charlie can actually get it ready. And we're going to be talking about media. So hopefully you guys can watch that. It'll be on our YouTube channel. So please look out for that. We're also having tonight, we're going to post about our challenge for the week. So make sure you guys check that out as well. And Terria, if you want to check out our Instagram, we have challenges you can do every single week. So
very cool.
Yeah, we're gonna get that all set up. And then we're also going to be interviewing Dr. Virgil Moorhead this week as well. And we're going to be posting that. So we also have a fun twist with that. And yeah, that's what we got going for the youth engagement series. So excited for everything.
Awesome.
Thank
you
you,
guys
Chris.
for having me. I appreciate that.
Thank you for coming. And
Check
to the
out-
viewers, if you haven't subscribed to News from Native California, you better do so.
Thank you.
Yes.
My grandfather has been a subscriber for all of my life, and which is pretty much the duration of News from Native California. So I've kind of seen the issues around here. I've got a couple to prove it. I think this one's from 98, 91, 2000. Yeah, so I was pretty excited to talk with you today, and for that, because it's, like I said, it's been a staple in my household. So
Thank you so much.
yeah, thank you.
All right. Have a good rest of the day. And thank you again, Terria.
Thank you guys so much.